It's Wednesday, and you know what that means. Well, no, I'm guessing you really don't know what that means, do you? Because normally live streams are on Wednesdays, and that's today, but we had our live stream on Monday. Why is that? Well, that's because we've got something special for you this week, and I wanted proper time to test it out. And that's my old Microsoft Surface Duo 2. Wait, that's my old device. Why do I have to test it out? Well, that's because I'm testing it in a way that it has never been tested. And yes, this is my own personal Microsoft Surface Duo 2 that I used for a couple of years and sits at my desk every day, just sitting open, waiting for me to use it. Why is that important? Because the fine folks over at Abxylute reached out to me and said that they had a telescopic controller that they wanted me to test out. And because I've tested out the AYN Thor and the Ayenio Pocket DS, I figured it's important to know how well a dual screen device could work for retro telescopic controllers. And how good other things, of course, like NES, Super NES, and PS1 work with this as well. So let's get into this first before we get started into the video because I'm going to be doing it a bit differently. Now, I say I'm doing it differently because this is all in one video. So we'll do the unboxing and then I'll cut to my intro graphics. But you can see they followed the same cues from their Abxylute One Pro that I reviewed earlier this year. Okay, and then got something here. We'll check that in a minute. Okay. Anything else there? Nope. All right. What do we got in here? I'm guessing probably a charging cable. Okay. We got a charging cable. We got a 8-way dish D-pad and a fairly thick manual. Kind of impressive. All right. We got English and a couple different languages here. PS mode. All right. So German, all kinds of stuff here. Now, I've owned a few different telescopic controllers. This is the first one where I've seen you can actually change your D-pad. And then looks like a fairly decently linked USB-A to USB-C charging cable. So kudos to them for giving us options. You guys know I love my options and customizability. So let's take it out together. All right. So this is a black device. And as we can see here, I can probably do this. Would be my guess. I'll have to look it up in the manual. I might have to take this off and do something like that. I don't know yet, but I'll check it out for you. Now, one thing they did let me know in January, they are releasing their GameCube inspired purple device. That is the brother device to this. So go ahead and check out the picture right now on the screen. Okay, great. So if you want this now, you can get this now, or you can wait till January for the purple one. They're just working on the color combinations right now. All right, so we do have some memory buttons here. We do have USB-C for charging over here, because as you can see, this is a Bluetooth style controller. Have some big console style buttons, which is great. Now, because my channel focuses on the side of the spectrum where handhelds live, it's important to note, do you really need a handheld or can you just use your phone? Let's find out right after this. Hey fam, swati tukong crap. P-Nick here for another review. And first and foremost, I want to thank you. Yes, you for joining me for another video here at P-Nick's Handhelds. And I know that you have a lot of options out there. And I know that I'm still a relatively small channel with only about 7,000 subscribers. And I say only in the kindest way because I do value and appreciate all of you. That said, I was wondering, as I was going through my intro video, you can get this device for about $56 US. And it feels like something that's about 3 times as expensive, if not more, especially whenever you talk about an actual handheld. But the real question is this budget-friendly Abxylute S8 actually the gateway into console-quality mobile gaming? Or is this one of those deals that's too good to be true? So that said, as with any of my Wednesday videos, I like to do my subscriber giveaways. So we can see now the wheel of review spinning. And to qualify for this, you'll simply need to subscribe to my channel, P-Nick's Handhelds on YouTube, and subscribe on my blog. The URL is on the screen now, pnix-handhelds.com. The only reason I do this is because I need a private way to be able to communicate with you. because I cannot communicate with you directly through Google. That said, I've been wondering if I should have a Discord server rather than doing it that way, so we could have a more interactive community as well, but I'll leave that up to you guys. For now, let's give the wheel a spin. And as you can see, the winner is Soto. Hey, congratulations, Soto. So I haven't reached out to you yet, so I'll reach out to you as soon as I can to find out what you would like. Last week's winner was Rogers, and he picked a Phoenix Handhelds t-shirt like I wear quite often. I have one in black, one in red, and one in white, but of course you can choose any color you want. So he chose a light blue color, and I gave him a slightly different design than what I currently use, but I'll let you choose what you want if you want to win it. Conversely, you can also win a coffee mug, and you can win a USB flash drive, and you can also win a desk mat just like the one I'm recording this on. All of those have been selected by previous winners, and maybe a future winner will also qualify for something else. I'm not sure. But Soto, let me know what you want. And as you can see, I currently have a Nintendo 3DS game up on my device. Now, one of the interesting things about this is, yes, it is a dual screen device, but it doesn't work like a dual screen handheld because dual screen handhelds understand that they are dual screen devices. The way Microsoft actually built this is that it thinks that it's a tablet basically that has two different screens that you can always be sharing information on. But again, when you spread stuff out, it thinks it's one screen basically. So it does make it a bit more interesting for DS and 3DS. But as you can see, I expanded out both screens to fill my screens. I think it looks pretty sharp. Now, speaking of the review, of course, this is a proper review. And in case this is your first time here with my reviews, I have 7 unique categories, and each category is rated 0 to 69, with 0 being the equivalent of instant e-waste, not worth your time unless you're talking about recycling something, and 69 being God tier. Whether we're talking about the category or the device itself, a 69 would be unmatched, could never be beaten by another handheld. And obviously, I have never given anything a 69. The closest I have given is a 68, and the 68 has gone to customizability to this point. The categories that I review every device on are the unboxing experience, which you've already witnessed, just not the score at this point, followed by the internals, which is also another way of saying the specs of the device, followed by first impressions, followed by ease of use, followed by my favorite category, customizability, and then, of course, controls, which for a device like this is super important, of course. And then we have value. And then I'll put it all together and we'll come up with the average score, which will be the average score of all of the categories, and of course, rounded to the nearest whole number. And then I'll let you know the top pros and cons of the device, as well as who should consider this device and who should consider skipping it. That said, let's get started the right way by recapping the first category that you've already witnessed, the unboxing experience. So as you saw, it comes in a very unique box. A lot of companies like to go with graphic laden boxes that include colors and make it all sorts of flashy. Abxylute has stuck to their guns. They did the same thing with their One Pro that I reviewed earlier this year, with that standard kind of cardboard look to it, with the outline of the device. And I can appreciate that they have a specific style and they stick to it. They're not going all over the place. For example, Anbernic has some with silhouettes like Abxylute, then some with color displays of the devices. So you get some companies that are all over the place, but they tend to stick to their guns here at Abxylute, and I appreciate that. And before I get any further, I do want to fully clarify that this device was provided by Abxylute for review purposes only. They did not ask me to say anything other than to mention their S8 Retro purple colorway. That's the GameCube color that's coming out in January. So if you're really into GameCube colors, that will be something that you could really enjoy. But the other colorway is still available, is the black one. Now, when you open the box, as you saw, I had the little box on top that included the very handy manual. And of course, you get USB-A to USB-C charging cable that you can charge this device with. Of course, no cable goes into the phone because it only connects via Bluetooth, but that makes it nice and easy because you can use your phone's charger to charge it if you wish. So I appreciate the packaging that they've given us, and it does make the device feel nice. because again, they could have gone a lot cheaper with this packaging, but they actually did kind of a nice job, I think, where it's on brand for them. So I'm going to give them an above average 46 out of 69. Now that we've unboxed this compact telescopic controller, let's talk about the internals, aka specs that actually make this device tick. So as we break down the internals of the Abxylute S8, this controller expands out to 216 millimeters to accommodate everything from standard smartphones up to smaller tablets. Your input compatibility modes are supported by X input NS mode, which is from that secret console, let's just say. PS for PlayStation, then they have their HID mode, and they also have mapping modes. HID is for Android games, for example, that do support controllers out of the box. And they have their mapping mode for games like Genshin Impact that do not actually support controllers out of the box. So, again, they're going to make sure that you can play any and every game, whether it's modern or not. And I can appreciate that. And the real star of the hardware is you're getting full-size Hall effect joysticks with zero drift and absolutely zero dead zones. These aren't the tiny sticks that you find on other devices, like the ones I've recently reviewed. You get full-size PlayStation or Xbox style analog sticks. You also get nice Hall effect triggers to make sure that you have great analog feel on your L2, R2, or depending on your vent LT and RT. I'm a PS guy, so I say R2, L2, but again, Xbox people have their RT and LT, so just depends on what you prefer. Of course, the nice thing is this device does come with a 1000 milliamp hour battery with fast charging support. So again, you can use your phone's charger with this, keep it topped up as you wish. And out of the box, the device does come with the standard ABXY layout from Xbox, not the secret console's BAYX layout. And you do get a 4-way D-pad, but the nice thing is things can change. As you saw in the unboxing, it does come with an 8-way D-pad that if you prefer the dish style, all you have to do is undo a couple screws on the back to be able to take off the top and swap out the D-pad for the 8-way D-pad. And I think that's really great that we get that customizability right out of the box. All buttons on the device are micro switch based, which will give you a satisfying tactile clickiness if that's what you really prefer. Some people prefer quieter buttons. Some people prefer the clickiness of mice. And if that's you, you'll be right at home on this device. There's even a screenshot button built into it, which is super handy because it'll tell your phone to quickly and easily be able to take screenshots of the games that you want to without having to fiddle around with drop-down menus or anything like that. And it does have really good dual vibration motors. So again, you feel really nice, feel like you're playing with a console controller with this device. With all of that said, I have to give the internals a 54 out of 69. All right, now that we understand the specs, let's talk about what it actually feels like to hold this thing in your hands. And as you can see, it does expand rather wide for phones and tablets. Here, let me pop out my phone here real quick for you. So you can see it does expand out nicely. And if you do have a phone that has a circular camera cutout, of course, you can pop this out so you can have your circular camera button, which if you look at the screen that I'm actually recording this on, it does have that type of camera cutout. So I could use the phone I'm currently recording this on without any issues. And as I mentioned, it does feel like a proper controller in your hand. If you're accustomed to playing console games, of course, that's the important thing is when we're talking about that, it does actually feel like you're using an Xbox or a PlayStation controller. So in comparison to any device that I've reviewed this year out of the box, this really gives you a great first impression for feeling like it's an actual console controller. You get console-sized analog sticks, which isn't a given, obviously, on most handhelds because of size constraints. And you even get the face buttons and D-pad that are console-sized as well. And the first time that I tried connecting my Microsoft Surface Duo 2, which is the device on the screen, to this device, it worked without a hitch. I just had to make sure that my phone was looking for a Bluetooth controller, and it just worked seamlessly. No fiddling, no lost connections, just immediate pairing. The weight and balance really does feel premium on this device. The ergonomic grips don't feel cheap, even if they are plasticky. They feel well made, just like a console controller. So the overall package screams console gaming quality, which is exactly what you want at this price point. Because of that, I have to give the first impressions a very strong 58 out of 69. Now that we've seen how it feels, let's talk about how easy it is to actually use this thing. For ease of use, as I mentioned, it immediately connected to my Surface Duo 2 without a single issue. It feels great in the hands. So again, if you're used to console controllers, you'll love the feel of a PlayStation or an Xbox controller in your hand, so you'll feel right at home with this. Now, maybe because I'm a PlayStation guy, but I wish that we had some parallel sticks rather than offset sticks. But it still feels really great in the hand. Even the vibration feels really great as well. It's easy enough to intuitively know how to turn on the device and change to the different modes. But if you do get confused a little bit, don't worry. Their actual guide is really great, which taught me how to do the switching. For example, you have to turn off the device by holding the power button until it turns off, and then do the combination. For example, if you're going to stream on your PlayStation, you'll want to do the power button and the Y button from an off state, hold it until it turns on, and then that'll turn it into PlayStation mode. And then, of course, sadly, there's no quick switch. Once it's on, you have to turn it back off, hold it until you see the light turn off, and then turn it on with another button combination to switch it back into the regular mode that you're in. So user guide is your friend and you'll quickly learn it. And again, the guide is in multiple languages, which is a nice touch. Way more languages than most companies provide, as most companies usually only give English and simplified Chinese. And as I mentioned, if you want to play a game like Genshin Impact, they do have their own app that you can switch it into mapping mode, use the application, and you'll be able to map out the buttons where you want them on the screen for games like Genshin and make it where you can seamlessly play those games that don't natively support controllers. And one thing I forgot to mention earlier is that if your device is inactive for more than a few minutes, it will automatically shut down. And this is actually a really nice, easy to use feature because it means that you won't accidentally kill your battery by taking your phone away from your controller and walking away to do something else for a few hours. So kudos to them for that nice little touch. And I have to admit, I think it's easier to use than some Android handhelds on top of that, which is funny because they're handhelds with purpose-built controllers. But for me, it feels that way. So I'm going to be honest with you and give it a 52 out of 69. With ease of use handled, let's move on to one of my favorite aspects of any device. And as we do that, of course, we're going to talk about customizability next. You can customize your gaming mode, whether it's mapping buttons for games like Genshin Impact, or you can put it in PS mode to play PlayStation Remote Play. But if you love the way that the Secret Console Maker does things, you can put it in an S mode, which hopefully you can figure out what that means. They even have an Xbox mode and an Android local game mode for games that do support controllers out of the box, like Minecraft and Stardew Valley. So they've got you covered quickly and easily in that regard, whether you're using the app or not. You can change the D-pad from the 4-way out of the box to the 8-way, thanks to the addition that they've included in the box for you. I prefer 4-way because I grew up with SNES and NES games and then migrated to PlayStation. So I've always had 4-way D-pads, but I know some people do prefer their 8-way D-pads, so they've got you covered there. And Abxylute absolutely knows that as well. So they've given us those options. And you just have to undo a couple screws, pop off the top, and swap out the D-pad, which I think is a great way that allows us to give us the options we may want right out of the box. Now, you only get one colorway option today, but as I mentioned in January, they are releasing the retro purple if you have Nintendo GameCube nostalgia. However, as I mentioned, this is not a handheld that has faceplates that you can easily replace. So unfortunately, you lose some customizability there. I would love to see that maybe in a future version, Abxylute, where you can pop off the faceplates, maybe buy other faceplates for a few dollars. So you can really make it your own, whether it's to pop it off and put on red ones or give it like a gunmetal or whatever look. I just want some additional options. And I think having that, like some of these telescopic controllers have, would be a great addition. So it's a balancing act between all of the things for customizability. It's more than some controllers, but not more than the really big dogs like the AYN Thor as far as customizability goes. But for a handheld telescopic controller, it's still pretty good. So I'm going to give it a 48 out of 69 for customizability. All right, now we're at the fun part. Let's talk about how this thing actually performs when you're playing games. for something that's obviously very important for any handheld or telescopic controller like this, and that's controls. The face buttons and D-pad are console sized, as are the analog sticks. But before I get to the analog sticks, the D-pad and face buttons have a clickiness to them from their micro switch nature, which makes them sound like a mouse being clicked or a mechanical keyboard being typed on. So if you love that, you'll absolutely love this. If you find that too loud and too obnoxious, if you prefer silence and you want your buttons dampened, this won't be for you, which is generally the way I want to go, honestly. They still feel good, don't get me wrong, when you're playing on them because they are fully sized. You still have a start and select button and everything you need. I even love the little things, like on the shoulder buttons, they alternate. Let me see if I can get a good view of this on the camera here. So you can see here we have a smooth side here and a smooth side on the opposite side, and a textured side here and a textured side here. So they kind of alternate on them. And I appreciate that we get the little contrast in textures for the controls. Just gives it a nice feel, I personally feel, for lack of a better word, but definitely a very nice feel in the hand. As I said, it feels like you're playing a PlayStation controller with offset sticks. The Hall Effect analog sticks are bigger and better than a lot of handhelds. And I do mean basically every handheld, honestly, because they are full-sized console-grade triggers and analog sticks for great ranges of motion. Maybe not quite comparable to PlayStation 5's triggers, but better than PlayStation 4's and before's triggers and most dedicated console controllers. They are clicky, but in a good way. All that said, I think that these controls are pretty darn great. And compared to any handheld, they are one of the better offerings. I love the look of the controller, and I think it's a good package for controls. A really good one, well above average. So I'm going to give it a 62 out of 69. We've made it to the final category, and this is always the toughest one for me to evaluate. And that is because we're talking about value, which because everyone's situation is different and everyone's desires are different. At 56 US dollars, as of the time of this recording, what can you get in the handheld market for this price? You can get the Anbernic RG35XX Pro. You can get other devices in that category. You can even get clamshell devices like the Anbernic RG35XX SP. The thing about these devices is that you can play up to PS1 games out of the box pretty well, and some PSP games as well. They're dedicated handhelds. So when you pick them up, you know what you're going to be doing. They're purpose-built. They're using Linux or some other custom firmware that you have installed. And when you pick them up and turn them on, you're saying it's time to play a game. Whereas this device can't be used by itself. You need something else like your daily driver phone or tablet to use, which is a pro and a con because these devices you can buy with a micro SD card and load them up with games. But nowadays, a lot of phones do not include micro SD card slots like they once did. So if you want to play games on your phone or tablet, you more than likely have to use your own internal storage. And depending on what games you want to play, will depend on how much of your internal storage will be eaten up by your ROMs. Some people may or may not like that. Is your phone more powerful than the Anbernic devices that I just mentioned for about $50 to $60? Absolutely. Unless you have a phone from about 10 years ago, it's going to be more than powerful than those devices. So it'll be able to handle more retro ROMs, such as PS2, without batting a stick at it. So there's value to be had in the regards that it is your phone and it's going to be more powerful. And all you need is this telescopic controller to give you that console feel while you're playing on your daily driver. But there's also a lack of value there because you're using your phone's internal storage that you might be using for other things like photos and videos of your loved ones, for example. But at the same time, there's going to be value there because if you're a console gamer and you want console style controls, you're going to get that with this device. And if you're new to the hobby and you just want to try out retro gaming using a controller on the go, there's going to be value for you because it will allow you to test it out to see if you really want to expand further into a dedicated handheld or if this is more than enough for you. I think about how much a PlayStation controller costs these days. or even an Xbox controller from Xbox or from Sony directly. And this is cheaper than either one of those branded controllers. And it feels like you're using one of those controllers. Unless you're using them side by side, you'd never really know. You're not going to complain about any of the minute differences that this might have versus a dedicated controller's controls, other than this being a bit louder because of having the micro switch buttons. So I see this kind of as a gateway device that you could use to test out your willingness to deal with the unique aspects of having an Android or an iOS device that can also be your retro ROM device. And that's pretty special to get people into this hobby. Maybe this is the only thing you ever have because it's a great device. Or maybe it's that gateway device where you suddenly say, you know what? I have a nice phone and I don't want to clog up my nice phone with all of these ROMs and emulators to play these games. So now I want to get a dedicated handheld. But again, the value is there because you're getting the nostalgia of being able to have access to your ROMs, because you're able to feel at home, because you have something that feels familiar to you, because it feels like a console controller out of the box. So all of those things factor into my end. And I have to say, I like the value this brings because it should enable more people to get into this hobby. And the more people we have in this hobby, the better. So I'm going to give it a 55 out of 69 for value. All right, fam, let's put it all together. The unboxing experience delivered a solid above average experience with everything you need included, earning it a 46. The internals pack full-size Hall effect joysticks and micro switch buttons that punch way above the price point, landing it at a 54. First impressions are fantastic because they actually feel like you're holding a real console controller in your hand, so I gave it a 58. Ease of use is straightforward and intuitive for a lot of people, with excellent cross-platform pairing for a 52. As far as customizability goes, it offers good mapping options and D-pad flexibility, though it's not as extensive as premium controllers or premium handhelds, so I gave it a 48. The controls are genuinely one of the highlights, with console quality joysticks, satisfying micro switch buttons, and finally, value is exceptional because you're getting console controller quality for less than the price of an original official PlayStation or Xbox controller, earning it a 55. So, rounding to the nearest whole number, the Abxylute S8 earns an overall score of 54 out of 69. In my humble opinion, this is a solid above average device that punches way above its weight for this price point. So, what are the top pros of this device? Well, you get console quality controls with full-size Hall effect joysticks and triggers, offering drift-free and ultra-smooth controls with 0 dead zones. You're getting actual console quality input devices for a fraction of what you would have to pay for an actual branded PlayStation or Xbox controller. The micro switch buttons deliver satisfying tactility if that's something that you are into, and the seamless cross-platform compatibility, supporting X input, PS mode, secret console mode, with universal multi-platform compatibility across Android, iOS, tablets, and the secret console devices. This single controller handles your entire gaming ecosystem with one telescopic controller. Endless gaming possibilities are going to be available to you, including those cloud options from PlayStation and Microsoft. I think it's a thoughtful gateway device for new hobbyists. At $56, this is the perfect entry point for someone curious about retro gaming or console-based mobile gaming. It's cheaper than the quality of official controllers from those brands, but it feels genuinely premium, allowing new players to test out the waters without committing to dedicated handhelds. And the auto shutdown feature. If you remember correctly, this is the feature that I mentioned earlier, where if you leave your controller for a few minutes, it turns off the controller. So that way you're not draining your battery. And after a few hours, you come back and realize it's still on and now your battery is dead. What about the top cons? Well, again, it depends on your preference, but for some, the micro switch buttons. If you game near a sleeping family member or prefer quiet gaming sessions, the clicky micro switch buttons will draw complaints, definitely. While they feel great, the noise is a legitimate trade-off for some users who prefer dampened silent buttons. Phone storage conflicts. Without most modern phones, offering micro SD cards anymore. Loading ROMs on your device can eat into your phone's photos, videos, and apps storage. So this can create real tension for you internally as you determine what do you want to use your internal storage for. Also, the limited customization versus premium controls. Unlike expensive controllers, you can't swap out the thumbsticks or replace the face button panels. The customization is limited to the D-pad swapping and the mapping of buttons on those games. For this price point, it's pretty great. But if you really are into modularity, you'll be missing it compared to what you have on higher end devices. And to get the most out of the device, you do need to use the companion app. This isn't a standalone device. If you want to be able to map all of your buttons and things of that nature, you will need the app. So again, it depends on what you need. If you are going to only use it for retro games, you don't need necessarily the manual. However, if you want to do any key mapping, you will need the app. So it just depends on what style you're going to be using for your game sessions, whether this is a pro or a con for you. So who should consider this? Well, I think Gateway George. You might be a Gateway George if you're curious about retro gaming or controller-based mobile gaming, but don't want to commit big money on a dedicated handheld just yet. You already have a decent phone and just want to test whether this hobby is for you before dropping $150, $250, $350 or more for a specialty device. The S8 is perfect for dipping your toes in without huge financial risks. And console-loving Christine. You might be a console-loving Christine if you've spent years with your PlayStation and Xbox controllers and you want that familiarity, that authentic feel whenever you game on your phone. You don't need the newest features. You just want something that feels like home. The S8 gives you that control grip and button layout at a fraction of the official controller costs. And who should skip it? Well, Hardcore Herald. You might be a Hardcore Herald if you want the absolute best, the most customizable controller you can get, with swappable joysticks, replaceable face buttons, and maximum personalization options. You're willing to pay a premium price for the modularity and future-proofing. The S8 is good, but it's not cutting edge enough for your standards. Or the Silent Shirley. You might be a Silent Shirley if you absolutely cannot tolerate noisy, clicky buttons and prefer gaming in complete silence, especially late at night. The micro switch tactility is a feature, it's not a bug. But if you're someone who hates clicking sounds and wants dampened, quiet inputs, this controller will drive you crazy. So circling back to the question I asked at the beginning, is this $56 Abxylute S8 actually a gateway into console quality mobile gaming? Or is this one of those deals that's too good to be true? The answer is that this is genuinely a legitimate gateway device. It's not too good to be true at all. At $56, you're getting full-size Hall effect joysticks, micro switch buttons, and console-grade controls that feel like something costing 3 times the price. The catch is that you need a phone or tablet to use it. And you'll need to decide if you want to clog up your phone's storage with ROMs or keep those handhelds for dedicated devices. But honestly, as an entry point into this hobby, it's incredible. It shows that quality doesn't have to be expensive. Whether this becomes your main gaming device or just a trial run before upgrading to a dedicated handheld, the S8 delivers exceptional value. If you love console gaming and want to take those familiar controls with you on the go with your phone, this is an absolutely must-have device for $56. If this review resonated with you, please drop a like and let me know in the comments, would you buy this Abxylute S8 as your gateway device? And if you haven't subscribed yet, this is the moment. Hit the subscribe button and enable notifications so you don't miss out on next Friday's review. And thank you to all 7,000 current subscribers and future subscribers. Your support makes this possible. And until next time, this has been P. Nick. extremely excited to announce the PNix Handhelds official worldwide giveaways. Now, each giveaway will happen at predetermined benchmarks. What are those benchmarks, you may ask? Well, the first one will be to have 100 YouTube channel subscribers. After that, the second benchmark will be to have 500 YouTube channel subscribers. And the third benchmark will be when we reach 1,000 YouTube channel subscribers. And then the fourth benchmark and all subsequent benchmarks thereafter will be when we receive 1,000 more subscribers than the previous benchmark. So again, think 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, and so on subscribers. Now, to qualify for the giveaway, you must A, be subscribed to the PNix Handhelds YouTube channel, of course. The second qualification would be that you would need to register on pnix-handhelds.com. And the third qualification will be that you send me a private message on the website to let me know your username on YouTube. This is simply because YouTube will not allow me to have direct private communication with my subscribers, and this will just facilitate that much easier for us. After each benchmark has been met, I will randomly select a YouTube subscriber and reply to their private message from the website. The gifts will include a branded coffee mug, t-shirt, or desk mat, or other options may become available in the future. Subscribers are eligible to win a gift once every 3 months or every 3 gifts, whichever happens first.